Hey there, in this tutorial I will show you my process for mixing vocals from start to finish. The title of this song I'll be using in this tutorial is Good Intentions and it's featuring Lil Sean. It's available on all streaming platforms. You can listen after watching this tutorial, of course. So let's start with the lead vocal chain. Okay, that is the lead verse. Right here we have the lead verse. It's a pretty simple vocal recording. It's just the lead, the lead verse, the lead hook, and a few backups here and there, which we'll all go through. Okay, so here it is. Let's listen to it how it sounds, the processed version.
Fine, get that line. Anytime I call her, I'ma break her spine. Up all night, lick her thighs. Fingertips, I'ma drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. She be screaming on my baby be mine. But I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel. Oh, baby, come to my kokoro. Say make I sample your EKB. Man, on day with it. She no come to play. Oh, baby, come to my
All right, so that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's start from the top. Now we have two different lead vocals. We have the lead verse and we have the lead hook. So let's start from the lead verse. So coming right here, we start with auto tune because we needed to tune the vocal so that it sounds good, but it was not very aggressive. It's not an aggressive tuning because even though this retune speed is all the way up here, right? The humanize and the flex tune are also turned up a little bit to make it sound more natural while still giving that auto tune effect. I don't know if that makes sense, but we don't want to get that 100% auto tune robotic effect in here. We just want a little bit of that auto tune character, but not so obvious. So the next thing after tuning, of course, is some compression. We're using the FL Studio stock compression in here to control the dynamic range of the vocal. Okay, you can see the threshold right here is around minus 26 dB. That is because the vocal is not really loud. It was not recorded, hot. It was almost very quiet. And also the way the artist sang the song as well. I recorded the artist, okay? So not all artists are audible or very vocal when they are singing or when they are recording, okay? So it was not so hot. So the threshold had to come all the way down to minus 26 dB, okay? Then the ratio is just around 4.3 to really lock in the inconsistency, okay? Because ratio is really what locks in the compressor to make it work, hard, right? So now we have the attack and the release. This is pretty much standard, okay? I didn't really touch the release, just the attack, mainly attack fast, about 9 or 10 milliseconds right here. And then the gain, when you compress, typically you do tend to lose loudness. Okay, you do tend to lose sometimes loudness. Sometimes you maybe make it louder, but most cases you lose loudness. So this gain helps you to regain some of those loudness you've lost. Okay, so I boosted back up by about 7 decibels. Okay, 7 dB. After tuning and compressing, next we needed an EQ to take out unwanted frequencies. And for vocals, most times unwanted frequencies are the low end rumble and resonance and also vocal harshness. All right. Now for low end rumble for vocals, it varies. It varies a lot depending on the character of the artist vocal, the microphone you use, and even the style of music in general. Okay. Now in this production, right, I took it all the way to about 120 hertz, 116, 120 hertz. Okay, that's really where I cut the low end up to. Okay, and then you can see I have some points, about 3 points in here. So I cut out resonant frequencies, these points right here. Okay, now this varies. This is not static. Even for the same artist, it may change in the next song. Okay, so whenever you're trying to remove resonance frequencies from vocals, try to find it every time for every project, for every artist. Even if you have multiple artists in the same song, it's always different for each artist. All right, so we just took out some low end rumble, okay, which is pretty much standard. Took out some resonant frequency, which is also standard. Now for this, now not every time you have harshness in the vocal, but the mic I used to record this artist is Behringer B2 Pro, and it does have a reputation for being a bit harsh on vocals, so I have to take it down just a little bit. And when cutting or boosting in this stage, please do not go beyond 1 to 3 decibels. Okay, that's plus or minus 1 to 3 decibels. Okay, for example, right here, I'm barely even going up to, this is just about 1.6 decibel. Okay, so we don't want to go crazy here in here. Okay, and then right here, after tuning, compressing, EQ, now we need to clean up the vocal. Okay, we need to take out some breathing problem. We need to take out some mouth movement and all of that, which we get to shortly. But the first and the obvious thing was breathing problem. We need to take that out. So for example, if I solo the vocal and I play it,
Tips I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on
So you can see those blue line moving. That's just simply the plugin working to clamp down, the breath. So if I turn it off,
tips I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but I ain't tripping.
now it does sound minimal, but when you end up compressing and processing the vocal along the way, it can get exaggerated. So it's best to just take care of it, as soon as you can. That's why it's up here in the vocal mixing chain. All right, I took care of it as soon as I'm done compressing and EQing the vocal. Pardon me. Now, I do not recommend you mix in solo. Do not mix your vocals in solo. It should always be together with the elements playing. Okay. So right here we have suit 2 because we're still trying to clean out the resonance in the vocal. Okay, and this plugin does a great job in taking out the resonance in the vocal. And this is a very simple plugin, just drag and drop. You don't really need to set anything in here. This is the default preset. You can see right here, factory default preset. Just slap it on your vocal and it cleans up the resonance really well. So if I'm going to turn it off, and let's see if you can hear it, I'm going to solo the vocal so you can really hear what's going on. This is without suit 2.
All night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is
And when I turn on suit 2,
all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but
you can hear how much tighter the vocal sounds and clean, especially in the low mids and the high mids range of the vocal. So this plugin does really help in taking care of resonance frequency in your vocal. Okay. So next thing, which is pretty common if you've recorded artists, they do tend to have mouth noises, mouth movements when recording. It could be chewing, it could be licking of lips, it could be the tongue coiling, it could be the teeth clenching, right? So you want to take out those issues in the vocals. Okay, so this plugin RX Multi Click. Now these plugins, typically Isotope RX plugins, do take a lot of your CPU resources. So you may want to use them and render the audio and continue. Okay, in my case, my PC is pretty powerful, right? So I could afford to load them up and use them in a live situation, right? I could leave them on without rendering the vocal. So this plugin is also drag and drop. You can see clicks repaired, so it just cleans the mouth movement, the tongue noises, and all of that. So you can see this are a lot of clicks in a single vocal take. We've not even done up to 16 bars here. This is just about 8 bars, and you can see about 288 clicks already repaired. So it does really help clean your vocals. Okay, clean vocals are so underrated when mixing. If your vocals are very clean, right, your mixing becomes a whole lot easier. Right, so after cleaning up the vocal, let's listen to it and see how it sounds.
all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be
The next thing we're going to do is polish the vocal, a little bit so it sounds more alive and more, interesting. And for that, I'll be using the virtual tape machine. It's one of my favorite saturation and tape emulators. This is from Slate Digital. It does add some presence and body to anything you put it, whether it's drum boss, your master boss, your vocals, anything really. You just add some fatness and presence to it, right? So right here, this is really easy to use. Just simply adjust this dial right here to the level you want it to be at. Okay, typically the more you bring it down, okay, the more presence is going to become, the more bass, the more fullness. Okay, sometimes you want to be a bit more relaxed, so you can take it up here to relax it. Okay, so we're going to bring it back to where it was before, somewhere around here. So that's pretty much where it was. So this was just to add some presence to the vocals. If I turn it off, this is how it sounds when it's turned off.
all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel. But baby,
And when I turn it on,
all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel.
so you can see that added more presence to the vocal. Okay, it was just a little bit, but that is world of difference. Remember, when mixing, you don't need to do too many things to get great results. It's just small changes that accumulate into great results. Okay, so remember, keep the changes small. Do not make big changes when mixing. Little changes along the way, great results at the end. Okay, because great changes along the way is going to give you entirely different song that the artist may not even like. Okay, and you don't want to come back to the session and mixing everything all over again. So keep the changes minimal. Okay. After this virtual tape machine, we have a compressor. This is also an analog model compressor from Waves, the CLA76. Okay. Now, this compressor is not just here to compress per se, it's mostly here because of its tone to add more of the analog tone to it. Okay. So I just adjusted the input to relax the compressor a little bit. I didn't want the compressor to be too active. Okay. So
all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be.
so you can see the compressor is driving the vocal, adding some more volume to it, but it's more for the tone than for compression. All right. Then after all of that, I usually do add some stereo enhancement to my vocal to make the vocal sound wider in the mix. I like my vocal sounding wide in the mix. And when the vocal sound wide in the mix, it just way it just feels, especially if the beat is it's simple and it's minimal. Vocal being wide in the mix just make the song sound more interesting. Okay. And when doing this, you don't want to do it too much. Okay, you can see this is just usually in the middle right here because I just did just a little bit, just a wee bit like that, right? Just a little bit. You don't want to make excessive change. Okay, increasing it too much can make your vocals sound too wide and lose character. Okay, or can even cause phase problems. So just use a little bit. Okay, and you can use any stereo enhancer really. You can use whether it's third party or stock. Okay, most music making softwares do come with stock stereo enhancers, and you can use that, and that's fine. All right. So finally, for the lead vocal chain, to get it to sound bright, I use this free plugin from Slate Digital called Fresh Air. This plugin adds a lot of brightness to your song. It typically works on the high frequencies and the high mid frequencies. So this is the range of frequencies typically work on. Okay, it makes your song sound brighter, makes your vocal sound bright, sound more polished. So when I turn it off, this is how it sounds.
All night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but
And when I turn it on, this is how it sounds.
all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel, oh baby.
You can see how good it sounds, right? It makes the vocal come alive even more. Now, I want us to compare before and after this vocal chain. But because the compressors in here are keeping the vocals at a certain loudness level, we're going to leave them on but turn off all the other effects, to avoid certain bias. Okay. So I'm going to play it again. We'll listen to it, and I'm going to listen to it again without the other effects, but with the compressors on. All right. So this is it with all the effects on, including the compressor.
Fine, get that line. Anytime I call her, I'ma break her spine. Up all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel, oh baby.
And when I play with just the compressor on, this is how it sounds like.
Fine, get that line. Anytime I call her, I'ma break her spine. Up all night, lick at dice, fingertips, I'm a drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Gone for hour, then I hit the spot. Ship is screaming on my baby be mine, but I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel.
So you can see it's a world of difference, right? So that's to show you how you process your vocals does matter. Now, these two lead vocals are basically sharing, the same processing. Okay, they're basically sharing the same processing, so it doesn't really matter. I don't have to go through this again. So what we're going to head into now is the reverb sense. Okay, we have a short reverb and a long reverb. Okay, so let's see what's really going on in there. So for the short reverb, I'm using the FL Studio stock reverb, and for this I use a reverb calculator to get it. So this short reverb is basically just me not sending too much of the signal into it. Okay, just a little bit that's going in here. While the long reverb, it's a lot of it that's going in there, but it's side chain. Okay, it's more of a side chain reverb. That's the long reverb. Okay, so let's come back to the short reverb. So like I said, we use reverb. A reverb calculator is free to use. Let me bring one up so I see one of my favorite reverb calculators. So here it is. All you have to do is just simply type in the BPM of your song. This song is currently at 100 BPM. Okay, so I can just simply type in 100, calculate, and it brings it out. So this was the presets I used, the big room presets. Okay, so the presets I used. Okay, all you have to just type in your pre-delay and your decay time. Okay, and that was what I used right here, the pre-delay and then the decay time. Then we adjust with the send right here. Okay, so we're just a little bit going in there, so not much. Same thing with the lead vocals. Okay, and then after that, for the long tail reverb, now there's something interesting happening in the long tail reverb. Okay, right here we have the same reverb setting. Okay, but for the limiter, because we have two different lead vocals running in here, I want to sidechain them using the same long tail reverb. So I have two different limiters in here. Okay, two different limiters, and what they are doing is, this is for the second vocal. You can see sidechain 2, while this is sidechain 1. So two different vocals. So this is a trick you can use if you don't want to create another track again for sidechain reverb. You can actually have multiple limiters in a single chain in FL Studio to create a sidechain. I don't know if that makes sense, but you can have multiple limiters in FL Studio to run different tracks into it and all act as sidechain. Okay, to that send. Okay, this is a bit advanced for for people that are into mixing, so I'm sure they will understand. Okay, so that's why I just routed. So the call, you can see both are routed at the bottom. They are both sharing the sends. Okay, for short and long reverb. Okay, but I didn't stop there. Okay, I added an EQ. Okay, the EQ also be here. They added an EQ to roll off some low end rumble that can come from the reverb. I wanted the reverb to be a bit bright and just clean. Okay, you can see the frequency range around just about 100 hertz. A roll off up to about 100 hertz in here. Okay, so when I turn off the reverb sense, these are the vocal sounds.
Fine, get that line. Anytime I call her, I'ma break her spine. Up all night, lick her thighs. Fingertips, I'ma drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Come for hour, then I hit the spot. She be screaming on my baby be mine. But I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel. But baby,
And when I turn on the sense, these are the sounds.
fine, get that line. Anytime I call her, I'ma break her spine. Up all night, lick her thighs. Fingertips, I'ma drill and grind. If he any other thing, pussy so fine. Come for hour, then I hit the spot. She be screaming on my baby be mine. But I ain't tripping, I just wanna feel. But baby,
You can see the reason why I have a long chain reverb and a short tail reverb is that the short tail reverb is just to give you that immediate wetness, while the long tail reverb is to fill up empty spaces that may occur in the vocals. Okay, so whenever there's some space, like for example in this region right here,
shy, yeah, ooh. Oh, baby, give me one time.
so if you listen closely, there's a little bit of sustain from the reverb in those empty spaces, right? So that's just pretty much why I have that in there instead of using delay. 'Cause I felt like a delay will make the vocal sound a bit too busy. Okay, I want to preserve the chilled vibes from the song, so I chose to use a sustained, or rather a long-tailed reverb, but sidechain, so that whenever the vocal is playing, it suppresses the reverb. Okay, then when it stops playing, the reverb is allowed to sustain. The tail is allowed to come out, wash that space a little bit. Okay, so you don't always have to have a sidechain reverb in your vocal. Sometimes a sidechain delay is what works best. But for this song, it was a sidechain reverb that just worked best. Now let's look at the backup vocals. Okay, we have two different backup vocals. This right here, okay, this backup vocal, and also we have this, which could have been set to the same track. Okay, but so this right here,
Time, vibes on vibes, drinks on night. Don't be shy.
let me solo it so you hear it.
Vibes on vibes, drinks all night.
Now this is how this vocal sounds. If you see right here, this is the chain auto-tuned. um Increase the reduce speed. The reduce speed is very much present. Okay, it's increased, very much compressed as well. It's pretty much almost like the lead vocal chain, but where really sets it apart is the EQ. I cut up to about 200 hertz in here, okay, so that there's no drag, presence, or weight with the lead vocal. Because the lead vocal, I think I cut to about 120 hertz, around that range, right? But for the backup vocals, I typically cut it to about 180, 200 to 20 hertz range, so it does not drag space or attention with the lead vocal. Okay, And then in here, of course, we still clean it up because sometimes some backup vocals do have mouth movements, breath problems, and all of that. Okay, still clean it up. Use an virtual tape machine to bring in some presence as well. Okay, use this to bring in some presence too. Stereo enhancements. It's just pretty much like the lead vocal chain. But what separates it again is that in here I have my reverb. The reverb is loaded directly on this because I wanted it to really wash in there. That's why it sounds like this.
Vibes on vibes, drinks all night.
So you can really hear it sounding drenched in the vocal because that is the vibe we're trying to go for in this song.
Time. Vibes on vibes, drinks all night. Don't be shy.
And it's left in the middle, right? I didn't pan it left or right because it's just one vocal, so it doesn't really matter. You could pan it left or right, leave it in the middle. Okay, if there were several, obviously I'd have panned them, either left or right. So same thing right here. This vocal as well. The only difference between this and the previous backup is just the volume. Let's listen to it.
Tell me no kiss and tell, I just mean you well. Cause your body is attraction. And you get
But for this place here is interesting. I did some pan modulation.
baby, me no kiss and tell, yeah, yeah. I just mean you well, yeah.
So after running the typical chain I have right here, right, I continued it here right here. So it didn't run straight into the master channel like this other track. Rather, I continued the chain at the bottom in here. And here you can see I have a Shep's EQ to add some character to it. Then I have this EQ to give it that radio voice effect, then a pan modulation effect from FL Studio to move it from left ear to right ear when it's playing.
Baby, me no kiss and tell, yeah, yeah. I just mean you well, yeah.
So if I turn off, the effects here, this is how it sounds like.
Baby, me no kiss and tell, yeah, yeah. I just mean you well, yeah.
So when it's turned on,
Baby, me no kiss and tell, yeah, yeah. I just mean you well, yeah.
so it was just there to add some character to the vocal.
Tell me no kiss and tell, I just mean you well. Cause your body is attraction. And you give me sweet sensation, ooh, yeah. Oh, baby, come to my cock butter. Say make a sample your.
Then right here we have another backup. It's pretty much the same chain but panned the other way. So let's hear how it sounds.
So make you do me, J. Make you do me, J, J. Make I treat you well. Make I treat you well, well, body. So make you do me, J. Make you do me, J, J. Well, well, well.
So you can see that's the chain again. And then now we have a harmony section, just a little harmony section. It doesn't stay long in the song. It's just these points.
Bad girl. Side girl.
Now let's see what's going on in here. Okay, so this is the first harmony section. Again, it's still pretty much the same chain as my backup vocals, okay, but it's just panned left here, while this the same chain but panned right, okay. But of course the EQ was a bit more exaggerated, okay. You can see it right here, it's around 200 hertz, okay, just like the backup chain. Then this stays in the middle. Now when you have vocals, two backup vocals playing at once, you pan them in opposite direction. If you have three, two in opposite direction, one in the middle. If you have four, two further in opposite direction, while two closer to the middle, okay. If you have five, one in the middle, two close to the middle, while the other two further apart, okay. So this is how you want to pan your vocal stacks and harmonies. And typically the vocal that stays in the middle is the bass, or the one that has the more bassy feel, okay, that stays closest to the middle or in the middle. So let's see right here, the reverbs are just exaggerated to give it that flavor.
Bad girl. Side girl.
So if I turn off the reverb can be very powerful when when you use it correctly. This is how it sounds like the reverb.
Bad girl. Side girl.
See, it sounds so dull and dry, but when the reverb is on,
Bad girl. Side girl.
and so that's how I put this mix together for this song. And if you found this video helpful, please leave a like button so other people can find it and learn a thing or two from this video, and subscribe for more tutorials. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll do my best to respond. Then again, you can listen to this song on Spotify or on your favorite streaming platform. I remain Sir Classy. See you soon. Cheers.